The shuttle hissed as it depressurized and the doors slid open with a low groan. 4 alien students from the Galactic Exchange Program stepped onto the lush, forested surface of Earth's Montana region, their translator modules already humming and blinking as they adjusted to Earth's atmosphere and language. Vel, the tallest of the students and the only one born with a bone-plated neck ridge, blinked his wide, violet eyes and scanned the area. So this is where the human male lives? Yes, said Lower, the smallest of the group who had spent 3 hours reviewing the Earth dossier. His name is Marcus Dallin. He applied for the interspecies cohabitation study. Supposedly he's quite adaptable. He's a civilian, noted Thrall, whose scales shimmered with every movement. Not military, not trained, just a civilian. The fourth one, a pale-skinned student named Ekel, squinted at the dense trees. Then why does his application list predator acclimation under hobbies? None of them had a good answer for that. The team trudged along the forest path toward the coordinates provided. The air was thick with pine and distant birdsong. Twice, Vel checked the scanner on his wrist, narrowing in on the signal. Then they saw it. A small cabin, wooden and humble, nestled in a clearing. Smoke curled from the chimney. A solar array was fixed across one side of the roof. There was a hammock strung between 2 trees, and a backpack leaning against the porch railing. But what drew their immediate attention was the massive animal lying just outside the front door. It was covered in coarse golden fur, its head broader than any of theirs, its teeth visible even in sleep. It breathed with heavy, slow exhales. And curled up beside it, using the beast's flank like a body pillow, was a human male. He's asleep, Loa whispered, aghast. No, Ekel said, voice flat. He's unconscious. The predator attacked him, probably started eating him and fell asleep after. Then why isn't there blood? Thrall asked. They stepped closer, eyes locked on the scene. Marcus stirred, muttered something unintelligible, and shifted his head further into the fur. The predator gave a soft grunt, lifted its massive head, and gave the man's hair a slow lick before settling back down. Is he cuddling it? Vel hissed. Marcus opened his eyes slowly, squinting at the group in the sunlight. Ha! You, the exchange students. None of them spoke. The man sat up, rubbing his face. Sorry, didn't hear the shuttle. This is Dusty, he said, patting the beast's shoulder. She's a grizzly. Friendliest thing you'll ever meet. Thrall took 2 full steps back. Grizzly? As in bear? As in Ursity carnivore? Yeah. Found her injured a couple years back. Nursed her back to health. She stuck around. That's not normal for your species, Lower stated. Marcus shrugged. Define normal. They followed him inside, though Vel kept glancing back at the bear, which now lay on her back, pawing lazily at a pine cone. The cabin interior was modest. A small kitchen, a cot, shelves lined with books and gear, a hand-built table with mismatched chairs. Marcus poured coffee into a tin mug and offered it around. Only Ekel accepted. The others refused with polite but horrified expressions. So, Marcus said, settling into a chair, you guys are here to study my cohabitation techniques? Vel spoke first. You sleep next to a predator. That's not a technique. That's insanity. Marcus sipped his coffee. You ever try keeping warm in a Montana winter without central heating? You have a thermal generator. Doesn't work during snowstorms. Dusty's more reliable. Loa pulled out a recorder. Do you keep her restrained during sleep cycles? Nope. Do you use tranquilizers? Nope. Then how do you ensure your safety? Marcus leaned back. I don't. I trust her. Ekel raised one long finger. But she is a predator. With claws. And teeth. And an instinctive drive to consume meat. So am I, Marcus said. The room fell silent. You are not a predator, Vel said eventually. Your species is omnivorous but relies on tools and cooperation. And so does Dusty. That night, the students agreed to observe further. Thrall opted to sleep outside in a suspended observation pod. Ekel set up motion sensors. Lower insisted on at least one emergency tranquilizer dart being loaded and ready. Vel, against his better judgment, stayed inside the cabin. Marcus tossed another log into the fireplace. You guys are real jumpy. Vel sat stiffly in the corner, eyes flicking toward the door every time Dusty shifted outside. You're too casual about this. I ran the math, Marcus said. Statistically, I'm more likely to die in a car crash than by Dusty. Of course, we don't have cars out here. She could kill you in your sleep. Marcus held up a scarred forearm. She almost did once. I startled her after she got spooked by fireworks. Took 16 stitches. You returned to sleeping beside her? She was more scared than I was. She didn't know what she'd done. You ever seen a bear cry? Vel hesitated. No, heartbreaking. The next day, Marcus took them hiking. Dusty lumbered along beside them, occasionally stopping to sniff trees or dig for grubs. The students kept a wide berth. At one point, the group paused to rest by a stream. Marcus pulled out a chunk of salmon jerky and tossed a piece to Dusty, who caught it midair. Vel watched intently. You feed her meat? Of course. And she doesn't associate you with food? She associates me with protection. And snacks. But mostly protection. A rustle came from the trees nearby. Dusty froze. Marcus's hand went to his belt where a flare gun hung. A low growl rumbled from the bear's chest. Stay behind me, Marcus said quietly. A mountain lion stepped into the clearing. Its eyes locked onto the group. Dusty took a step forward, growl deepening. Marcus didn't wait. He fired the flare just above the cat's head. It hissed and bolted. Dusty didn't move until the sound of fleeing paws faded. That wasn't for show, Marcus said, lowering the flare gun. This place isn't a zoo. Out here, you don't survive by underestimating anything. Later that night, Vel approached him by the fire. You said you trust her. But not completely. No one should trust anything completely. Not even themselves. Vel stared into the flames. Why live like this? Marcus leaned back, watching the sparks rise. After my brother passed, I couldn't deal with cities. The noise, the people, the pretending everything was fine. I came out here to disappear. Dusty showed up after I'd been alone for 6 months. She was hurt. I helped her. We figured it out together. And you don't fear her? I respect her. Big difference. The next week, the students documented everything. Dusty's routines, her diet, the way she responded to Marcus's voice, the subtle body language they used to communicate. Lower was fascinated with the nonverbal cues. Ekel recorded sleeping patterns. Thrall reluctantly admitted that Dusty displayed signs of emotional attachment. Then came the thunderstorm. Lightning cracked across the sky. The cabin shook with each rumble. Dusty, terrified, burst through the door and scrambled under the cot, whining. Marcus calmly lit a lantern and sat beside her, running a hand over her head. Easy, girl. Just noise. Nothing's coming. The students watched, stunned, as the massive predator trembled like a child. She fears storms, Thrall whispered. She fears the unknown, Marcus said. Same as us. That night was the first time Vel dared to touch Dusty. She didn't flinch. She sniffed his hand, then returned to licking her paw. 2 days later, Marcus twisted his ankle badly on a trail. The pain was sharp and he was unable to stand. Dusty didn't hesitate. She lay down beside him, nudging him gently with her head. When he tried to crawl, she shifted to support his weight. She's guiding him back, Lower gasped. It took hours. By the time they reached the cabin, Marcus was pale and sweating. The students stabilized the ankle and ran a scan. It wasn't broken, just sprained. Dusty didn't leave his side for the next 2 days. Eventually, the time came for the students to return to their homeworld. You've changed our understanding of interspecies bonds, Vel said as they packed up, and deeply unsettled our assumptions. Marcus grinned. Glad I could help. Ekel turned to Dusty, who sat expectantly beside the porch. Goodbye, Predator. Dusty sneezed. No offense, Ekel added quickly. As the shuttle lifted off, Vel looked down at the cabin, the bear, and the man waving beside her. He turned to the others. We came to study human cohabitation with predators. We found something else. Thrall nodded. We found trust. Loa adjusted his recorder. And maybe something even stranger. What's that? Asked Ekel. Affection. Vel folded his arms. I still say it's madness. but even he smiled as the cabin vanished behind the clouds. For days after their shuttle departed Earth's atmosphere, the alien students were summoned to a debriefing chamber aboard the central academic vessel, the Threxel Thought. It hovered in synchronous orbit over Europa, humming softly with the weight of collected knowledge from over 100 species. The chamber was lined in pale bio-glass, semi-translucent walls casting a diffused glow over the students as they stood before a semicircle of senior evaluators. There were 9 in total, each representing a different council-aligned species. Heavy robes, different gravities. No facial expressions a human would recognize, but all radiating the same unspoken question. "Explain," said the center evaluator. A broad-skinned Ketheri whose breath visibly condensed from its natural cryothermic state. Ekel cleared his throat. "We expected to find passive coexistence. Instead, we found relational integration." "Clarify," demanded another evaluator. This one with a warbling vocal tone that required the translator to render it as a kind of rustling whisper. Lower took over. The human did not merely tolerate the predator's presence. He relied on it. Emotionally, physically, and behaviorally. We found mutual dependence, not domestication. A low vibration passed through the floor. Approval? Discomfort? None of them could tell. The Ketheri leaned forward slightly. And the human? Thrall gave a slow blink. He behaves as if the arrangement is routine, as if danger is only a variable when you acknowledge it. He treats the bear like a partner, not a pet, not an experiment. The evaluators were silent for several moments. Finally, the Ketheri waved a segmented appendage. "You will return. Observe further. Collect long-term data. Embed yourselves. 1 Earth rotation period." Vel stiffened. "We return alone?" "No. You will be joined by a Relari observer. She has studied human behavior extensively." Ekel muttered under his breath. "They're sending a sociologist." The Relari arrived during the descent. She was taller than any of them, her skin a rippling sheet of iridescent blues and greens that shifted as she moved. Her name was Dr. Selvon, and she carried no luggage, only a folded sensor net and an old Earth paperback titled The Inner Game of Tennis. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Selvon spoke without looking up from the book. "Tell me, has the human exhibited fear response toward the predator since your last visit?" "No," Lois said. "Not in any conventional sense." "Then you're asking the wrong questions." The shuttle touched down at sunrise. The cabin looked unchanged, the clearing still quiet except for the soft rustle of pine needles. Dusty was sprawled across the porch, one leg twitching in sleep. Marcus stood beside the solar panel, shirtless, elbow-deep in wiring. He looked up, squinting. "Huh. You're early." Selvon descended first, her gaze sweeping the area. "You have a power fault. Battery relay burned out. I've got a spare. Just had to clean the connection. You're not using gloves." "Couldn't find them. They're probably under the cot." She tilted her head. "You are aware that direct exposure to photovoltaic capacitors can cause dermal burns." Marcus held up his left hand. The fingers were wrapped in gauze. "Yeah, I'm aware." Thrall coughed. "You injured yourself and continued working? Didn't want to lose the freezer." "There's smoked trout in there." Selvon lowered her sensor net. "Would you permit a scan?" "Sure. Long as you don't stick anything in my ears." The scan took under a minute. She frowned slightly at the results. "You have second-degree burns on your index and middle fingers. Your left thumb shows signs of prior laceration. You've got elevated cortisol and your sleep cycle is irregular." "Sounds like life." "There are protocols for medical treatment. I've got a bucket of cold water and some antibiotic cream." "Worked fine last time." Vel gestured vaguely at Dusty, who was now sniffing Selvon's leg with mild curiosity. "You're not worried she'll react to the injury?" Marcus shook his head. "She's seen worse. Once I cracked a rib falling off the roof. She just sat next to me until I got bored of moaning." Selvon knelt slowly, letting Dusty sniff her palm. "She is reading your chemical stress markers." "Probably. She gets clingy when I'm upset." Selvon stood. "Fascinating. May I observe your interaction with her over a full circadian cycle? Marcus grinned. You planning to sleep in the woods? I do not sleep. Well, I do. And so does she. So if you hear snoring, it's the bear. They stayed 3 days before Selvon asked to accompany Marcus into the backcountry. He agreed on the condition that she carry her own pack and didn't wander off without saying where. They left after breakfast, Dusty trotting ahead like a furry compass. The others remained behind, monitoring vitals remotely and logging behavioral data. By late afternoon, Selvon and Marcus reached a ridge overlooking a narrow valley blanketed in fog. You brought no map, she said. Don't need one. I've walked this trail for 12 years. She scanned the terrain. You rely on memorization? I rely on remembering where I've gotten lost before. She paused. And if you become injured again? I've got a whistle, a flare, and a bear. They made camp beneath a rock outcrop. Marcus showed her how to lay tinder for a fire, how to use flint when the lighter failed, how to angle a tarp against wind. She watched everything, occasionally asking questions. After nightfall, a chorus of coyotes howled in the distance. Dusty stiffened, ears up. Marcus didn't move. Do you think they'll approach? Selvon asked. Maybe. They usually circle first. Curious, not aggressive. And if they do attack? Dusty'll handle it. She nodded slowly. You have transferred situational control to a nonverbal, instinct-driven being. Yup. And you sleep. He shrugged. Eventually. She turned her gaze to the fire. How do you define trust? He poked at the coals. Knowing someone else has the last word on whether you wake up tomorrow and being okay with that. Silence stretched between them. Then Selvon reached into her pack and retrieved a folded image, an old photograph printed on composite paper. It showed a Rillari child beside a Terran mountain dog, both curled together beside a stream. My first experience with Earth fauna, she said. I was 6. Marcus leaned in. You ever see the dog again? No. It was part of a program. Controlled exposure. The animal was returned to a sanctuary after 72 hours. Too bad. 72 hours isn't enough. She tucked the photo away. I believe you're correct. They returned the next day. Back at the cabin, Eckel had rigged a low-orbit relay to transmit daily data summaries. Vel was reviewing footage when a new log came through, Marcus splitting wood one-handed while Dusty dozed nearby. He's using his injured hand, Vel muttered. He's adjusting his grip to avoid pressure on the burn, Loa corrected. He's compensating for pain without reducing output, Thrall added. Selvon leaned over them. You're all missing the point. He's not adapting to survive. He's adapting to continue. That evening, Marcus invited them all to a stew made from root vegetables and something he only described as something that tasted like chicken but wasn't. They sat around the fire, the sky streaked with falling stars. Dusty snored under a tree. Marcus passed around a battered metal thermos filled with hot cider. Do you think your species would ever fully integrate with ours? Selvon asked softly. Marcus didn't answer right away. He watched the steam rise from his cup. Maybe. But not if you expect us to be sensible. Loa tilted his head. Define sensible. Predictable. Efficient. Risk-averse. Thrall shifted. You consider those negative traits? Not negative. Just not always useful when you're stuck in a snowstorm with a bear and a sprained ankle. Selvon's gaze drifted to the treeline. What do you think Dusty would do if you died? Marcus exhaled through his nose. Probably sit on me for a while. Then wander off. Find her way. Same as I did. They stayed 3 more weeks. During that time, Dusty treed a bobcat, chased off a hawk attempting to snatch Marcus's lunch, and once dragged a fallen branch twice her size across half a kilometer because Marcus had mentioned needing firewood. Each event was logged, analyzed, debated. On their final morning, Marcus stood at the edge of the clearing holding a small clay object shaped like a curled bear. Made this for you, he said, handing it to Selvon. She turned it over in her hands. Why? To remind you that not everything dangerous needs to be controlled. As the shuttle lifted, Dusty let out a low, mournful sound. Marcus scratched behind her ear. She'll be fine, he said aloud to no one in particular. She knows they come back. Above, the clouds closed over the sky. The clearing fell quiet again, but for the faint rustle of pine needles and the slow, steady breathing of a bear who had once been wild. Dusty was snoring again. Not gently. Marcus had long since given up on the romantic notion that animal sleep was quiet. Her head was half on the porch and half on a boot she'd stolen from him earlier. He let her keep it. She'd earned it. Vel stood a few meters back, arms crossed, watching with an expression Marcus had come to recognize as exaggerated neutrality, the kind someone wore when trying very hard not to admit they were uncomfortable. "You still don't trust her," Marcus said, pouring water into the kettle near the fire pit. "I've calculated over 60 potential failure points in your arrangement," Vel replied. Marcus scratched his neck. "That's impressive, considering nothing's failed. Yet, you're determined to make paranoia look like a virtue. I consider it survival instinct." Marcus set the kettle on the grate. "You ever consider that maybe survival isn't the only thing worth calculating?" Vel didn't respond. Instead, he moved closer, slowly, and crouched near the fire. "Your body temperature's elevated," he said after a pause. "You're still healing. It's an ankle sprain, and some finger burns. I've had worse. You should be resting." "I am resting." "This is me resting. You're making tea over open flame." Marcus shrugged. "Well, I'm not climbing a tree." From behind them, Thrall emerged from the tree-line, holding a small metal case. "We finished the structural scan. The roof's sagging on the north end. That's probably why the snow accumulates unevenly." "Yeah," Marcus said. "One of the beams cracked last winter. Thought I patched it well enough." "You didn't," Thrall said, opening the case to reveal a structural resin sprayer. "May I? Be my guest." While Thrall began treating the beam, Marcus lowered himself onto the porch steps. He winced slightly as his foot bent. Vel noticed. "You've altered your gait?" "Only slightly." "You're compensating," Vel said, narrowing his gaze. "You shouldn't be walking on that yet." "I'm not walking. I'm sitting." "You walked earlier. You fetched firewood." Marcus smiled faintly. "Didn't say I was smart." Thrall straightened up, resin applicator in hand. "You know, you could request a replacement support. The council offers habitat maintenance for registered participants." "I built this place myself," Marcus said. "Feels wrong to start outsourcing the hard parts." "That's not logic," Vel said. "That's sentiment." Marcus tilted his head. "Same thing sometimes." A low grunt came from Dusty as she rolled off the boot and onto her side, paws twitching. Thrall watched her. "She's dreaming. Probably chasing rabbits," Marcus said. "She gets vocal when she dreams about wolves. Makes this weird hiccup noise." Vel took out a compact device and began typing. "You're able to identify her dream content?" "Not exactly. Just patterns. The noises match her real-life reactions. She growled like that once when a raccoon tried to steal a trout out of her mouth." Thrall's eyes flicked toward the bear again. "That's anecdotal. Everything's anecdotal until it happens twice." An hour passed. The fire crackled lazily. The tea was finished. Marcus offered some to Vel and Thrall, who both refused. Marcus drank anyway, coughing once as the heat hit the back of his throat. "Your cough," Vel said. "Is that new?" "No. Just steam going the wrong way. You maintain such a casual attitude toward bodily distress. I prefer that to panicking over every sneeze." "It's not panic. It's awareness." "You're not wrong. But I've got a different threshold for alarm." Thrall leaned against the railing. "What is your threshold?" "Waking up and not being able to move a limb. Or when Dusty starts pacing." "She only paces when something's really off. Otherwise, I assume I'm fine." Vel tapped something into his device. "You rely heavily on subjective markers. Because they're the ones that matter to me." Selvan arrived just after dusk, walking with her usual unhurried stride. She carried a bundle wrapped in barcloth. "I brought something," she said. Marcus raised a brow. "What, a fruit basket?" "Close." She unwrapped the bundle to reveal several root vegetables Marcus didn't recognize. "Edible. Mildly sweet. Grown hydroponically. I thought you might want to try something new." He accepted them, turning one over in his hand. "Looks like a mutant yam. They're called kell roots. Careful not to overcook them. I'll roast a few tomorrow." She settled beside the fire. How's the pain? Dull. Which is better than sharp. The swelling's down. Any bruising to the shin? Yeah. But not spreading. You've been elevating it? Marcus hesitated. Define elevating. Selvan sighed. Marcus, I've kept it at hip level when I sit. That's not elevation. I've also been walking less. Because it hurts. Exactly. She pulled out a small scanner and gestured to his leg. Let me check the joint. Marcus pulled up the cuff of his pants, revealing a faint purple-green swelling around the ankle. Selvan passed the scanner along the area, watching the readout. Mild ligament strain. No bone damage. You're lucky. But if you keep using it this way, you'll prolong recovery. Marcus looked down at the ankle. I'll stay off it tomorrow. Promise. Dusty lifted her head slightly at the word tomorrow, then dropped it again. Vel stood. We're leaving the day after next. Marcus nodded. That's soon. We've gathered sufficient data. The council will want analysis. Thrall added and reports. Comparative behavior charts. Extended projections. Selvan didn't respond. She just packed up her scanner and looked at the fire. Marcus watched her. You're not convinced it's over. She met his eyes. I'm convinced we've only scratched the surface. Isn't that always the case? Not always. With humans, yes. Marcus chuckled. We're complicated. You're inconsistent. But consistently so. Thrall stepped away from the porch to check the resin seal on the beam. Still holding. Should last at least through the next freeze cycle. Appreciate it, Marcus said. You're better with tools than I expected. I've built shelters in sulfuric storms. A cabin in the woods is child's play. Vel paced slowly across the clearing, scanning the treetops. There's a storm front moving in. Not severe. Just cold. Dusty loves the cold, Marcus said. She gets energetic. Selvan stood. Will she pace? Not unless she smells something weird. Like another predator? Or a human with too much cologne. That night, Marcus sat on the steps again. Legs stretched out, Dusty curled up nearby. The others had retreated to their temporary shelter just beyond the tree line. Selvan returned alone, carrying her notebook. I've logged 87 distinct signals between you and Dusty, she said. I'm not surprised. They're not verbal. Most aren't even gestural. Just shifts in posture, eye direction, muscle tension. She reads me better than most people do. She's not interpreting your words. She's interpreting your state, which feels more honest sometimes. Selvan closed the notebook. You're aware that many would call this bond unnatural. I used to think that too, until I stopped needing a reason for it. She nodded. The council will want conclusions. They value clarity. Then tell them the truth. I didn't tame her, and she didn't tame me. We just stopped treating each other like threats. Silence stretched again. The wind picked up slightly. Dusty shifted, then laid her head on Marcus's foot. Selvan watched the motion, then turned to leave. We depart at sunrise. Marcus raised his cup. Safe travels. The next morning, the shuttle lifted through a pale blue sky. Marcus stood by the porch, ankle-wrapped, leaning on a walking stick he'd carved the night before. Dusty sat beside him, not watching the ship, but watching his face. As it disappeared into the clouds, Marcus turned and walked inside. Dusty followed, tail swishing lightly across the floorboards. For the first time in weeks, the cabin was quiet again. But it didn't feel empty. It felt settled.